Welcome back. This is part two now, and thanks to a little Mercury retrograde intervention. I was actually talking about Venus retrograde and the the aspect of accelerated evolution. But one of the factors given this particular retrograde has to do with Venus and Mercury is Mercury. And Mercury is about communication, expression, listening is a Venus thing. Mercury is speaking, right? They are two aspects of a pathway for our own evolution. Venus has to do with the relationship, right? Self and other, the relationship, and Mercury has to do with the information or the communication between the relationship. Mercury also, reflects the aspects of the things that help us to function in communication. So that can be computers, that can be transportation, that can be travel, that can, it is really the movement of information and all the ways that information moves. Um, so here, we're working on now a um, second aspect of this video, and it's a great illustration of things break down in retrogrades. And I want to be really clear that we can either see the breakdown of things or the return of things as something that's gone wrong, or we can see it as exactly what was necessary in order to facilitate our evolutionary journey. Now, in the case of this video, it broke down. And so I went back inside my house to check the Wi-Fi. I saw that the Wi-Fi had been was not working. I reset it, and in the meanwhile, I needed to attend to my children for a moment. And so it worked out really perfectly, really beautifully that I was able to nurse my son and put him back down to sleep, and then return to the video after a few moments of while the Wi-Fi reset itself. And I'm able to come back to this and reintegrate the information that I received during the breakdown. And that is what I really hope that we can do during the retrograde review. The retrograde period itself gives us an opportunity for that internalization, right? For that review of our life. And the breakdown gives us a process that allows for us to reassess. Now, all retrogrades happen in three parts. It's like a three-part story. So we have the pre-shadow time, which is right now. Already there's something in your life in the Pisces Aries axis, which is activated, which is functioning and bringing forward something that you need to work on or review or reevaluate or evolve in this next 3-month period. If you're not noticing it already, it may really reveal itself as like a bright, fresh, flashing light during the eclipses, as whether it's a flash of insight, whether it's an unexpected encounter, whether it's a new beginning, whether it's a sudden ending, whatever it is, it will make itself clear. It's like if you didn't notice the noise on your vehicle, then during the Mercury retrograde, you might unexpectedly find yourself broken down on the side of the road. But if you were paying attention, like for me, these last couple of weeks, we took our car in to be serviced. We've been paying attention to a noise that it made. We did the full servicing. Now, that may or may not prevent me from having a breakdown during the retrograde period, but I certainly think that it's made me aware, and I'm aware of the thing and I'm working on it. In my relationship, there are things that have come up that are unresolved. And I'm in an active process of prayer and self-reflection and reflection in my own work, in what I'm calling in and what I'm trying to work towards. And I'm also in a dynamic process with my partner that is unanswered, unresolved, right? So wherever you are in your particular process, it's already here. It's already, it will become probably more heightened, more intensified during the retrograde, and it will most likely come to a complete and full resolution during this time period. So let's just go through it because um, we're in the pre-shadow phase. We have Mercury, which will enter its shadow um, in the next couple of days here. Venus will get to her station degree. Here's Mercury's retrograde shadow beginning. And then Venus stations retrograde on March 1st. Mercury gets to the end degrees of Pisces and enters the sign of Aries, and pretty much is with Venus here before Mercury is also going to station retrograde. So Mercury will cross over Venus, and then now they're both retrograde March 15th. Now, let's keep in mind, I mentioned before that our eclipses this season are very closely tied to the whole retrograde cycle. Here's the total lunar eclipse. That is a Virgo Pisces axis. It's really the first eclipse of the year, and it's a full moon in Virgo. So this is Moon on the South Node. Mercury rules the South Node, rules the sign of Virgo, will be ruling the Moon. Mars is direct here. Venus is retrograde. Mars is ruling Venus. And we have Saturn and the Sun and the North Node and Neptune all in the sign of Pisces, along with Ceres, the mother goddess. So Mercury here is at its station degree. It's really like a day later that Mercury stations retrograde. So I think this is significant relative to this eclipse because the South Node reflects the releasing of the past from an evolutionary perspective. And the moon is about to cross the South Node at this eclipse time. So we can know from our own evolutionary work that there is something in relationship, especially as it relates to romantic relationship or relationship with the masculine, relationship to our will, our desires, our drive, relationship to our money, to our resources, relationship to our larger spiritual calling in life, to our sort of ultimate meaning and purpose. What do we make ultimate meaning out of, right? What's most important in our lives? I know for myself, I've been realizing that for me, love is the bottom line. And I'm talking about love, not just romantic love, right? That is a facet of love. In the Greek, there's like 8 different words that are used to describe different types of love. But for many cultures, there's only one word for love, right? Love. And if that one word is all encompassing, then we're talking about unconditional love. And when we're talking about Venus, we're talking about conditional love. So we're releasing something relative to guilt, relative to inadequacies, relative to communication patterns, where we have felt that there's just like not enough. Whether it's not enough time, not enough resources, not enough energy, not enough eros, not enough connection, whatever it is, where we've been struggling and suffering because there's not enough. This access point is opening up a gateway where there can be a breakthrough. There can be a change, there can be a shift. And it is about Venus coming back to herself. And she's in Mars's sign. And Mars is in the sign of Cancer, which is the moon sign. So there is an interrelationship between the three of them, which is really inviting us into a deeper evolutionary process. And that evolutionary process has to do with our emotional body. I say this often, evolution happens through the emotional body. If we can't feel it, we won't heal it. If our heart is cut off, if we are closed, if our mind is closed to the possibility of something changing, we will not be able to feel it. We might feel disillusioned. We might feel a lot of guilt or shame or a lot of confusion. We might be disconnected from ourselves and thus seeking outside, information to try and settle this sort of sense of not knowing what's meant to be. But there's a quote, what's meant to be will always be, and what's not meant to be, you can never make it so. So there is a certain peace and faith and capacity that we can rest in, even if we are uncertain about the purpose of what's happening in our lives. And we can know with this particular eclipse that it is about deeper transformation, both of our patterns of communication, of the places we have been, where we have repressed our own personal power, of the relationship patterns and tendencies where we lack the capacity to fully commit. Because if we aren't fully committed to something, it can't be sustained. Really, that's the truth of it. That Mars Aries instinctual action, which gets us into things, can get us into a lot of trouble. It can get us into relationships, into places, into things that we don't have the passion, the energy, the stamina for until we release something and actually come into the deeper spiritual level of commitment. That this is here because it's a lesson to learn, that this is here because it's evolutionarily my time to face this. And what's interesting is we have three parts of a mystic rectangle. We sort of lack the last piece, but we have a sextile here between Uranus and Taurus, which is trine the moon and the south node here in Virgo. We have the sun and Saturn here with the north node, which is the other leg of this sextile, which is trine Vesta and Juno, right? So there is a deeper calling here to a full level of commitment and clarity around our purpose. And around that purpose may be that there are different things from the past that we have to heal and forgive in order to complete and move on. We have to come to some sort of reconciliation. Now, the other side of this eclipse season is the new moon that happens in Aries, which will happen after Venus has moved through her retrograde. So maybe I'll go back to, let's see, I'll go back to March 14th. So we can go through the progress that happens as we move on past the eclipse of the 14th. Now, Mercury and Venus are both retrograde. Whoops. Let's go back. Too fast. Let's not move too fast. Okay. Mercury and Venus are retrograde, and then they're both going to come back towards their conjunction with the sun. Now, in a retrograde cycle, the conjunction with the sun that happens while the planet is retrograde is called the inferior conjunction. There are two conjunctions that a planet who is retrograde will make with the sun when we're talking about the personal planets, the inner planets. The outer planets will not do this. but Mercury and Venus will both do this. And this is called the superior conjunction or superior cazimi when the planet is retrograde, or is not retrograde, but direct. And that is the midpoint between the retrograde cycle and the non-retrograde time. And then when the planet is retrograde, they will make a conjunction with the sun as the midpoint to the retrograde cycle itself. So in the middle of Venus's retrograde, she will make a conjunction to the sun. And in the middle of Mercury's retrograde, he will also make a conjunction to the sun. So you can see the sun enters the sign of Aries on the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. It's the fall equinox in the southern hemisphere. And then the following couple of days, we have Venus making her conjunction to the sun. And this creates what we call a Venus star point. Every retrograde cycle, she will make a star point and or outside of her retrograde when she makes a conjunction with the sun. And these mark, she makes a 5-pointed star over the course of time. So here's the Aries star point. This is at 2 degrees Aries. This is happening at a very particularly special time also. So it's right after the equinox. It's March 22nd. Then a few days later, we'll also have Neptune entering the sign of Aries. Venus makes her conjunction with the sun, and then shortly after that, Mercury makes its conjunction with the sun at 4 degrees Aries. So the midpoint of this retrograde point, sort of we could say the peak of it, is happening just before the Aries eclipse. So we should know relative to this Aries eclipse, wow, this will probably be a very potent eclipse. By the time the eclipse happens, Venus is already back in Pisces. And I want to go back just a few days so you can see she will make a conjunction with Neptune here on the 28th. And then we have the Aries eclipse on the 29th. The new moon is happening also on the North Node. So this is a whole new evolutionary cycle. Setting the stage, seeding with its intention here at the very end of March. So from the beginning of March, when Venus's retrograde begins, to the end of March, we are going through this powerful evolutionary portal where what we are committed to, what is sacred in our life, what we are most devoted to, sort of gets pushed all to a head so that we really can give ourselves. This is like one of those surrender moments of giving ourselves to the greater divine purpose for our life. And that is a necessity if we are going to do the thing of aligning our will with the divine will. If we are going to step into that Venus function of allowing for the love that we are in our lives to have greater meaning and purpose, right? For me, life is about love. It is about true love. It is about the destiny of our purpose as love. That is the work of the soul. It is about healing where we have been in relationships where there has not been love, whether that was our childhood, whether that was romantic relationships, work relationships. It is about coming into living our love in the work that we do. Right. And you can be the love that you are in the work that you do and be working at McDonald's or be doing what you quote unquote feel is your life's purpose. If your purpose especially has to do with astrology, right, which I have definitely found a purpose in astrology, this is culminating towards bringing forth a greater capacity of your work. And I don't know about you, but for me, like studying astrology, doing this work, practicing as an astrologer has been a huge catalyst. But most of my evolutionary journey has really come through my relationships, both my marriage, my current relationship, partnership, my children. They all have activated deeper levels of purpose and deeper layers of meaning in my life than anything. My family, my relationship to my family, right? These are the places where we truly do the work of evolution. This is where we truly do our spiritual work, I believe. My relationship to Jesus, my relationship to Mary Magdalene, these spiritual teachers and guides who are guiding my life most intimately, as especially I feel like my deepening devotion to both Yeshua and Mary Magdalene have been the guiding forces in my life, especially in this last year. Since my birthday, when I did the pilgrimage to Mary Magdalene's grotto, my study and devotion to the Bible, to the scriptures, to Jesus, these are things that have become focal points and anchors within my own life. And they've changed things in my life profoundly in ways that um, I can't even really express yet because I don't quite fully understand certain things that are changing within my own soul, right? But I try to, on the week ahead, I try to bring forward the evolutionary growth that I'm exploring within my own life. And I'm certain that during this retrograde period, I will go through a deeper and more intense period of evolution. So I'm trying to frame it out for you now so that you have a framework for your own review. Because right now, the places where, let's say, we lack clarity, we lack awareness, we lack resolution, where we lack response to our deeper desires, these are the very places that will be worked. The places where we have um, unresolved emotions, these are also the places where we will be worked. And we can see here there's a new beginning that's happening. And I find what's interesting, Chiron is in Aries here at 22 degrees on this second eclipse. And Mars is squaring Chiron in Cancer. So Mars is ruler of Aries, will be ruling this moon and is in the sign of Cancer, which is ruled by the moon. So again, there's that same interrelationship. So we can know that there's a deep evolutionary process happening relative to where we've been wounded and hurt and where we've really struggled. For me, in many ways, I cannot teach anything that I'm not also learning from direct experience. But one of the limitations of that is that I have to go through learning that is often painful and challenging at times and makes it difficult for me, um, to bring forward anything until it's resolved, right? So I'm in this kind of constant process of evolution that then I am bringing forward to you and sharing with you. And I'm hoping that these things are helpful because really it's that's where my heart is. I don't really want to be doing this work. I would lay down my roles and responsibilities as an astrologer if I didn't feel like it was truly helping your own evolutionary path. And it's really helpful for me when I receive messages from you and I receive feedback that says that this is helpful. And a part of what I've had to do in my own work is, um, you know, make a commitment to doing something wherever two or more are gathered. There's a phrase in the Bible, wherever two or more are gathered, there I am. So I've always maintained a willingness, even if my class sizes are small, even if there's not very many people, as long as there are two or more gathered, then the prayer, the healing, the possibility for miracles, the possibility for our own evolution to happen is present. and I want to keep doing my work to show up for that. Um, so that includes my new moon ceremonies. I don't do ceremony on eclipses, but I am offering a new moon ceremony for the Pisces new moon. And I'd love to invite you to join me. There's a link on the description to this video to register for the new moon ceremony. You are invited to join me in that. I will do a transmission on the new moon itself, on that Pisces new moon, and then I will be offering a healing meditation, and then opening up the space to sharing intentions. In this new moon ceremony, I'm open to doing chart practice with you all to look at the upcoming eclipses and look at where they're falling in your chart. So if you want to do that bonus work of seeing, oh, where is this going to be affecting me in my life? Because this is such a powerful evolutionary portal that we're going to be walking through, I'm happy to look at that with you. So sign up for the new moon ceremony. All of the details are in the description to this video. And also, if you're on my email list, you'll receive that as well. And join me for that, because I feel like we're opening a door where we're going to walk through and not be the same person that we were on the other side, right? From the full moon to the new moon, to when we begin the 1st of April, through this season of this retrograde, which doesn't end, by the way, at this eclipse. We will both Venus and Mercury are going to station on the other side of the North Node. So they're going to go all the way back to the other side of the North Node after Neptune enters Aries, and they're both going to station direct. First, Mercury at 26 degrees Pisces, right there with Saturn. And then Venus on the other side of Saturn. And she stations at 24 degrees Pisces on April 13th. And then Mercury and Venus will both cross the North Node. They will cross Saturn. So Venus is going to cross Saturn for the second time. She had her first conjunction to Saturn earlier in February. She'll have her second conjunction to Saturn after Saturn crosses the North Node. So here on April 25th. And then by then, Mercury has almost cleared its shadow. It will clear its shadow there after 9 degrees. So on April 27th, it will be in new territory. And then Venus will complete her retrograde shadow once she enters Aries, and she will make a new phase conjunction to Neptune at 1 degree. So make note of these degrees, because they're important, especially if they are places in your natal chart. And in particular, it's important because when Venus makes her conjunction to Neptune on the Aries side, so she made her first conjunction to Neptune on the Neptune side, on the Pisces side, right? Neptune in Pisces. And then she makes her second conjunction to Neptune on the Aries side. And by then, Mars is direct in Leo, and also in its clearing of its shadow in the Leo side of its retrograde. So we're finally complete with the entire cycle of all these retrogrades once Venus gets to 10 degrees Aries. And this new phase with Neptune will be significant. I think it's going to mark a whole Neptune in Aries cycle, where for several years, as Neptune works through a sign, 7 to 14 years, there is going to be these repeated conjunctions with Neptune. But this is the first seed of that cycle where she is. And once she does that and she clears her shadow, then she's going to come into a trine relationship to Mars as well. So Venus and Mars will trine here at 15 degrees. And I think of the trine between Venus and Mars, the square is the crisis. The trine is the aspect where we're working together harmoniously. So where our creative life force and our energy, our will, our drive, our desire is now more firmly fixed in this place of initiation that is bringing us into a deeper instinctual relationship to what we are here to cause and create. And that's important because going back to what I said at the beginning, you weren't created by yourself. You were created by your creator, but you were created to create. And if we want to create what we're here to create, right? Our special purpose, our destiny in the world, to if we want to be able to contribute to creativity on the planet, we have to be in our sovereign, be in our agency, be in our creative power, and we have to also be connected to our divine purpose, our will. Otherwise, we'll simply just initiate karmas. We'll do things, we'll seed things that we don't have the stamina to maintain. We are not putting in the spiritual work and discipline to see the thing that we've created as sacred, as holy. And so we can sort of like miscreate with that energy. And miscreating with sexual energy, that creates war, that creates violence, it creates pain, it creates immense suffering in the world. You know, there's and plenty of heartbreak in the world from ghosted one night stands. There are plenty of children who have been created by parents who later abandoned them or, don't show up. And then the child lives with this sort of wound of the attachment of the parent. There are plenty of relationships that have been destroyed by impulsive angry words or hurt, you know, and we don't want to do that. That's like misdirecting our love and our creative power. Um, what we want to do is we want to maintain the innocence of that creative power and its sacredness. We want to be able to take what is holy and divine within us, and we want to use that in the world for healing. We want to recognize, oh, we're here to create things, and we're drawn by what we are inspired by. Um, part of this can be like healing the inner child, thinking about and remembering what did we love as a child? For Valentine's Day, I really wanted to feel the love and the romance. And so I bought myself something that my little child would love. I bought myself this little mushroom stuffy because when I would look at it, it's like, oh, it's so sweet. It just reminds me of something so joyful, so playful and so innocent. And it's about that fiery spirit is about keeping our light, our light bright. It is about keeping our hearts active. And then the positive healing quality is about purifying, right? That is the Virgo work. And I think it's what we'll be doing through the first part of that eclipse season, sort of purifying, taking responsibility instead of judging others or judging ourselves. It's like having clarity and transparency and seeing ourselves clearly. So we're acting by changing our energy and really focusing ourselves in a way that is about healing our bodies and healing our minds and healing our spirits and renewing ourselves. This can be an incredibly powerful time of renewal for you. The retrograde season, while it accelerates change, while it accelerates our evolutionary journey, it's because it's bringing us forward into what's next, into what's true, into what is powerfully aligned for our soul. And it's so interesting to me that by the end of this shadow period and where Venus is, we have Pluto stationed retrograde. So we end up with that internalization and that acceleration of evolution coming right back down to Pluto and to the soul. And Pluto in Aquarius, this is a liberation of our true instinctual creative essence so that we can break through limitations from the past and enter into new beliefs, new vision, new ideas, new ways of thinking, new ways of seeing one another, new ways of being in relationship to one another, so that we can heal the deeper wounded parts of ourselves and the emotional body that says that we are not safe to be who we are, that we're not safe to be authentic, that we're not safe to speak our truth. And we can really testify against that. We can be true to ourselves, to our beliefs, to our spiritual path without hurting others, without controlling others, without, you know, putting our dogma or our, misdirected ideas on each other, but by truly remaining true to the unconditional love that is guiding us, remaining true to the divine will that is guiding us. So, my friends, that takes us all the way through May. I'm not going to go through the rest of the retrograde planets. I'll save that for another time. All of the details of the retrogrades is on my website. If you sign up for my mailing list, there's a link here in my newsletter. I'll be announcing during this time period, I'm going to be doing the Jeffrey Wolf Green Association of Evolutionary Astrologers. We're going to have our whole Venus series during this time. And join us for the free talk. I'd love to learn together with you. I know that this will be a deeply powerful time of learning and of evolutionary growth. And so I hope that you will join me on that journey. And as always, my friends, leave me your comments, leave me your little hearts. Share your experience with me in the comments below, and bye for now.